My advice for people who have members of the family with depression, I'd say two things. I'd say one, it's important to really think for yourself, what's the most important thing for this person? How can I be the most helpful to them? And to be there and, encourage them to go seek help, encourage them to maybe talk about what's going on, especially if they're parents. I think they should check in with their kids and try and do that. I have had experience with members of my family in depression, though. And the next big piece of advice I give to families, though, is it's not your job to fix your family member. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't matter what you do as a parent or as a sibling or as a member of the family that will ever help that person with their depression. You can try and help them get help, but ultimately it's going to be their responsibility to change. And I'd be concerned if somebody was devoting their entire life to try and fix, a parent or fix a sibling, that they would lose out on their own life. I've seen that happen, and that I guess is my concern. To make sure if you are a family member that you're doing your self-care and being as supportive as possible, but making sure it doesn't take too much of a toll on you.
When family members notice depression with a young man and their family, they will notice the change in behavior, obviously. Most family members are sensitive to change in their children's behavior. But the very worst thing I think that a parent can do is express concern in a very spontaneous way, suggesting there's something wrong with you. Because the internalized self-statements are, if there's something wrong with me, then I have failed, or I'm incomplete, or I'm not a man. So they would deny and say, no, there isn't. So I find that not too helpful. So the way that we recommend that they approach their son in that case is express concern that they notice a change in what he's doing. Not how are you feeling, not comments about your emotions that drives them further into isolation. But if they point out that they notice there's a change, and in what I call a kind of an inquiring sense, have you noticed that things aren't going quite as well? Focus on things and behaviors and doing. Then they will often enter a dialogue that appealing to their observational abilities. Yeah, I have noticed things aren't the same. And it isn't, and in that stage, then the parent could say, well, we've noticed it too, and then tie their concerns to the goals of the young man. So if this doesn't change, then your goals in sport or achieving in school would be handicapped, wouldn't they? And they would say, yeah. So asking permission, then at that point, are there some ways that maybe you could get some support around achieving your goals that you're currently involved in, and then look at maybe what's going on. It's a very light touch, but if you tie it to, we notice changes in self-defeating behavior around achieving your goals, they'll often engage because they're very goal-oriented, they want to be successful. And with parents, I think that's a more helpful way to let each other know we know what's going on.
But I have to remember that I'm a mother too, and my husband's illness will obviously affect our kids. So I give the advice of always talking to your kids about what depression is and how it's a biological illness. It's better to talk to them before an incident happens, because when they're in the middle of the incident, the child may be very confused about what's happening, because this was daddy a month ago is not the same as daddy in front of me right now. So my belief is that always telling the kids that this is an illness, it can recur, it may look like this, but that's okay. It's an illness, it will get better. I also have to be very conscious of the fact that I married into a family which depression runs in, its roots run deep. So I have to be aware that my children might have depression too. So I have to be very aware of telling them that it's okay, that they start feeling signs of any kind of mental illness, that mommy and daddy are the first person they need to tell. And also to be aware of what possible signs of child depression. I'm hoping it's not child depression, but letting myself as well as they know that what depression can look like in the younger patient.
In terms of advice to a family that thinks a family member is depressed, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer, but I think one possibility might be to try to get that person to go to the doctor for maybe one of the symptoms of depression. Gee, your energy is really low lately. Maybe you should go get that checked out. All these headaches you've been complaining about, maybe you should get those checked out. Things like that, where if he's not going to go to the doctor and say, hey, I think I'm depressed, at least get him to the doctor and hope that the doctor can see that he's depressed. And if he's complaining of some of the things that are symptoms of depression, then maybe that's going to be enough to trigger it with the doctor. Or maybe you can talk to the doctor beforehand and say, hey, I think I'm worried about this. Can you check him out? But I think getting into that healthcare system, getting your foot in the door is the most important thing. And that's what I would stress to any family that's facing that.